Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's doing great, and I thank you guys for tuning in to listen to my presentation and hear about the character that I have chosen. Just want to take a few minutes to share with you about my character Elijah. I've chosen Elijah, and I have chosen him because I was always fascinated with his story. He was a great, godly man, and and he got to experience supernatural things, and God worked mightily on his behalf. Always fascinated me because he did go through times of doubt and fear. Like for an example, when he was running from Jezebel and went and hid in the cave, and it always caught my attention because I always wondered how somebody that could experience God to the extent he had could even struggle with doubt. I just never thought it would be possible. But that's why I've chosen him. And the first time that you hear about him in Scripture is 1 Kings chapter 17, verse 1. And in this verse is when they introduce him. Um, there's three key points that I found that I think are very important that you guys should know. And the first one is that Elijah was, of course, a prophet, and he was a well known prophet. He was active around the 9th century BC, and he was mostly active in the northern part of Israel. Also, King Ahab and his son Ahaziah happened to be ruling and reigning at this time too. The second key point that I found interesting and important was that Elijah, he was at a strong conflict with the children of Israel because that they had adopted this pagan religious worship. Elijah, he was a godly man. He stood for God, for Yahweh, and he believed that Yahweh was the one and only true God of Israel. And at the time, the children of Israel, most of them happened to be worshiping this false god named Baal. And Elijah himself, he didn't like it. He couldn't stand for it. And it bothered him. And this ongoing conflict eventually led to the event that happened in his life, probably one of the bigger, most well-known events that happened during his life, which was Mount Carmel. And just to refresh you real quick, what happened on Mount Carmel was that he got the children of Israel and the 450 self-claimed prophets of Baal and brought them up on this mountain and wanted to challenge them so he could prove to them and show them once and for all that Yahweh was the one and only true God. And they did this by bringing up two bulls. Elijah got one, the prophets got one. The prophets took their turn by trying to call on their God, getting him to answer by setting their bull on fire, and they couldn't get nowhere. And of course, it was Elijah's turn. He called on Yahweh. Yahweh stepped in on his behalf, supernaturally set the bull on fire, and Elijah got the victory, and the house of Israel turned back to Yahweh. And you can read more about it in 1 Kings chapter 18. That's where it's located, about Mount Carmel. The third key point that I thought was very important to know was what happened at the end of Elijah's life. He was one out of the three people recorded in the Bible to be miraculously taken up to heaven, along with Enoch. Enoch was the other one, and of course we know Jesus in the New Testament. They were miraculously taken or they were ascended up to heaven. And I thought it was interesting because Elijah, he was walking with Elisha, and they were walking and talking, and they ended up coming up to the Jordan River, and they wanted to get to the other side. And Elijah, he ended up taking his mantle off, and he struck the top of the water, and it supernaturally parted, and they walked right through to the other side, and they continued to walk and talk. And then all of a sudden, this chariot of fire shows up out of nowhere, and Elijah is just within seconds taken up in a whirlwind, taken to heaven, and seen no more. And I thought that was very powerful and interesting. Also, it's good to know that Elijah was also transfigured. He was one of three people that got transfigured on the high mountain, which is in the New Testament. Jesus took his disciples up on a high mountain. He transfigured himself, and Elijah and Moses were the other two that appeared with Jesus talking to him. And you can read more about the transfiguration in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And it is a powerful story, by the way, event that happened, if you will. And I just want to thank you guys so much for tuning in and taking your time out to listen to my presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys were able to get something out of it. I just want to thank you guys again so much. God bless you guys. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.